Now let's talk top 25 because we got the new list here. Still waiting on the net rankings to update. They may have by the time I upload this, but right now we have this. I do want to go ahead and get in some of those recaps from the games from yesterday, so we can kind of just mix that all in together now. Have a casual conversation. UCLA, number one. Their game against Northwestern was canceled. They also canceled their next game versus USC, so nothing to really talk about there for UCLA besides they deserve it. South Carolina, number two, still. That game against Texas was big for me because, in my opinion, Texas has been overrated. Texas and UConn in the net rankings. They've been above UCLA and South Carolina pretty much this entire time. I think South Carolina overtook them on the last net rankings, but still, took entirely too long. I didn't feel like they had the resume to deserve all of the love they were getting there and in some of the precedings and the bracket talk. So it was good to see them go ahead and prove that they are the superior team in the SEC. Sanaa Fegan with 6 blocks. I like seeing that as well. She's a player who reminds me a lot of Rhea Marshall for USC. Underrated in some of these mock boards, these mock WNBA draft boards. Not sure what the scouts are thinking. They were in the house, but just as far as YouTubers and some of the blogs and websites haven't been giving them a lot of love. I believe they deserve for the roles they play on their teams and can play at the next level. So good to see that. Joyce Edwards continues the role that I predicted she would go on. I told a lot of people who are on those freshman lists that their spot is up for grabs when it comes to Joyce Edwards. Now that Ashlyn Watkins is out, so we saw a little bit of that. Still looking to get Maddie McDaniels back. There's a McDaniel. I'm always putting that S on there. Anyway, Notre Dame, they looked all right without Hidalgo. Obviously, there was going to be some drop off, but they didn't look too impressive in the win versus UNC either. And so I'm not going to blame it all on the fact that Hannah was there. In my opinion, in their last 6 games, starting with the game since UConn, they haven't looked as impressive as USC has. But they still deserve that number 3 spot over USC because they beat them in the head to head, despite having one more loss. Liatu King, and this is why, for me, it's a little bit different when we talk about Hannah and what Juju is doing because Hannah's playing next to 4 WNBA players. WNBA next season. All right. Citron, Miles, West Bell, and Liatu King. They're all going to the WNBA next season for sure. She put up a 20 and 10 double double in this game. That's pretty much what she averaged last season, so that's not a stretch. She's reduced her role in order to fit into what Notre Dame has going on, but she can always do that. That's nothing new to her. West Bell coming off of the bench, we know she can do more than that. She's just coming along slowly after the injury, but she's been looking great since she returned. A little bit slower for Liza Carlin because she's not only coming back from injury, but she's also getting acclimated to a brand new team, which West Bell isn't. So it's a little bit different for her, but don't sleep on her and what she brings. She's been starting for a reason. Just hasn't had the eye popping numbers. So there's so much top level talent playing around Hidalgo that I just feel the weight that she carries and the weight that Juju Watkins carries, two entirely different things, but that's just me. Perhaps I'm biased. I am a USC fan. I'll go ahead and put that out there for whoever's watching this for the first time. But that's my thoughts on the Notre Dame win. They're going to dominate the ACC in my opinion, so not a lot to look forward to there in their conference games. USC, okay, the Georgia Tech game may be a good one if they have Carnegie back. If they have Danny Carnegie back by then. USC, they look great in their last win. Honestly, they went ahead and took it to Penn State. They've looked pretty good in their last, like I said, their last game since UConn. Last 6 has been. Juju Watkins, obviously, 35 points, 11 rebounds. It's the 5 steals and the 3 blocks for me, though. To me, it's just criminally underrated how good she is on not just the perimeter getting steals, but when you see her in the post blocking shots. To me, there's no other defensive player that I would really even compare to her, versatility wise. But, we all have our favorites. She's mine as far as the defensive category goes. Give me the player that can get 5 steals and 3 blocks all day and just affect a lot of jump shots and just use her length throughout the entire 40 minutes of the game. But that's me. We won't get cute on this one with the player of the game. That definitely went to Juju Watkins. Kiki Area Finn with her 28 points. She solidified her spot on a lot of mock boards. People have been playing with her name. I feel like she's underrated at this point. I'm seeing her on some mock boards going 6th, 7th, 8th. You guys are jokes. You guys are a joke if you think she's going that low. 6'3" out there nailing mid-range shots, looking like a 6'3" Asia Wilson. It's almost automatic. Then you look at that explosion to the rim off the 1 and 2 dribble, even 3 dribble, drives. She has it all. Post up, face up. She can do it all. She's starting to get blocks. This is the first game in 5 games now that she didn't get a block. She was on a streak, so she's been stepping it up for sure. LSU, they deserve it all. They deserve to move up. They looked really good. I like that small lineup that they broke up against Tennessee. I really like that lineup because I've spoken about my concerns with Morrow and Jersey playing in that front court. Neither one hits threes, neither one gets blocks. And they've also started Poa in some games, so they weren't getting a lot from neither of those three. Now, when you add KG into that lineup, whether it's the closing lineup, starting lineup, doesn't matter to me as long as they're the ones getting the lion's share of the minutes. And so I really like that small lineup that they ran out there. Hopefully, we see that more. I'm pretty sure we will with the success that it had. UConn, they look really strong without Page, but it's the Big East. So, I mean, there's no other ranked team there for them to play. It is good to see Azzi Fudd just looking healthy and getting run regardless of who it's against. So, a lot of opportunity for some other players to step up. They've taken advantage of it. Sarah Strong, I expect to see more out of her, but then again, Azzi Fudd has stepped up so much that she didn't really have to expand her role at all. Sarah Strong's just doing what she's done all season, which is make her way onto the top list of potential player of the year award winners. But in my opinion, this race really comes down to Hidalgo and Juju Watkins. With Paige missing 2 games, even before her missing the 2 games, I've kind of put her out of the race a little bit, or at least moved her down a tier. That last game from Taniyah Latson, we can stop talking about her being in the player of the year race right now. She's having a great year. I know one game doesn't take everything away, but every time she's had a chance to move her team up to the top 25, they've come short. And that last game was a real dud. You can't score 3 points in the first half, 0 for 3. So we're not going to see that kind of game from Juju or Hidalgo. We're not going to see that kind of game from Betts. So in my opinion, they've kind of dropped out of the race or down a tier. But it's just my opinion. All right, Maryland, they had a nice bounce back win. You expect them to do that. So seeing them at number 8, I skipped right over Texas, didn't I? Not really, because I already talked about them in that game versus South Carolina. They moved down 2 spots. I expected that. They're looking for any opportunity to move UConn up. LSU, be warned. The second you lose a game, I don't care if it's against South Carolina or not, they will move UConn past you, even though they're playing tomato cans. Is that still a thing that people say, or is that just in boxing? They're playing nobody, but they will move you right. They will move UConn right past LSU the first opportunity that they have a chance. So that's that. Ohio State, they've handled their business. Jelani Cambridge, she's been up and down, but Cody McMahon, they have a solid team all around. It's going to be nice to see those 2 teams face each other, Maryland and Ohio State. Same thing that I've been waiting for with TCU and Kansas State in the Big 12. But in my opinion, this top 12 has now rounded out into shape. It's right where I thought it would be. If you go back and look at the top 25 recap that I did a few weeks ago, I talked about Kentucky being in this top 12 area. To me, that's exactly where they belong. I love this team. George Amoore, in my opinion, she's moved up on some WNBA drafts. Should be, at least, on some NBA draft mock boards. Her play, it reminds me a lot of the 2014 draft when you had Odyssey Sims going above Alyssa Thomas and Chelsea Gray, the point guard. And it was the right pick at the time, and she had the faster start in the WNBA the first 2 seasons. But by 2017, they were both playing on the Sparks, and Chelsea Gray was starting over Odyssey Sims. And we've seen how their career has gone since then. Chelsea Gray, she's a point guard. She just won the gold medal. She's won championships. Odyssey Sims, she's been on quite a few teams in the last few seasons. So, yeah, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Olivia Miles and Amoore, but I'm just saying there's a lot of value at whoever picks Georgia at that spot. I'm convinced at this point. Not really into 5-6 players. We saw what happened with, Deja Fair last season, how she dropped right out the league, being shorter. But the fact that Georgia brings a lot more than scoring, she's a great facilitator, in my opinion. Her height doesn't take away from that. Yeah, I'm really up on her and her moving up the draft boards. But anyway, back to Kentucky as a team, one of my favorite teams. Top 5 team, in my opinion, just to watch. Maybe not a top 5 team in actuality, but I like watching them a lot more than the Kansas State, than the Ohio State. just that front line of having Amelia Hassett, 6'3", knocking down threes. You have Tiani Key, 6'4", reminds me of like Deanna Bonner. Deanna Bonner. Reminds me of Bonner. And just has a lot of guard skills at 6'4". Strack, she had a bad game against Gokdang, but every other game she's been there. Gokdang for UNC. But she's been there every single game. Then you have Silva at 6'7". I love this team. I love this team, especially Strack and Tiani Keys being in that front line. Really like those two. Oklahoma, they dropped down 3 spots. They've been up and down. I'm not really sold on them. I don't really know if Oklahoma and North Carolina are truly better than Tennessee. I'm sleeping on North Carolina still. I feel like North Carolina and Duke, they're overrated in the ACC. That game that they put on was horrible. And for them to go into overtime, they were tied at 16 at halftime. And for them to give us extras by going into overtime, you can keep it. Not really sold on them, despite what they did in that ACC SEC challenge. I think Tennessee is probably the 13th best team. That's just me. We'll see how it shakes out, but not really sold on Oklahoma and North Carolina right now above Tennessee. Duke, they dropped 2 spots. And the fact that North Carolina rose 5 spots too, that really irks me. They didn't deserve that much for the the week that they had. Duke dropping 2 spots, it makes sense to me. Makes a lot of sense. They lost to North Carolina. The win that they did have wasn't very impressive against Virginia. They won by 5 points. It was a struggle win. Georgia Tech dropping 4 spots because they lost 2 games without Danny Carnegie. To me, that's a bit harsh. I understand it doesn't matter who was there and who wasn't. You have to play the game the way it was. But in my opinion, you put Danny Carnegie back on that team, and I'm putting them right behind Tennessee. If I put Tennessee at 13, I have Georgia Tech right behind them, above North Carolina and Duke in the ACC. That's just my opinion. Cal, they're rising fast. They run up 6 spots. Lulu Twaddell, she's out there balling. She won that face off against Tanaya Latson. So they deserve everything they're getting right now. The fact that USC, UCLA, and Cal are all in the top 20, and shouts out to Cal, man, California, West Coast basketball in general right now. Hopefully the Sparks can get it together. They're the only team that's a blight on it, but I'm loving that West Coast basketball down to the high school level. Alabama, they're missing Barker out there. They're missing Barker, but they did get a big game against Ole Miss, and they've been in and out of the top 25 as well. Ole Miss has, so pretty much was a ranked win. We'll give them that. West Virginia. I mean, once we get down past the top 20, it really doesn't matter. You can throw all these teams in and out of the lineup. There's some teams beneath there who I think can also be in the top 25. We saw Michigan get some votes. Mississippi State, they've been coming on strong. Indiana was ranked earlier. Florida State had a chance. They were right outside of the top 25, but they blew it. And so it really doesn't matter once you get past the top 20 and debate who should be where. They all are, in my opinion, not top 8 teams, not really even Sweet 16 eligible teams. I think that we're going to see maybe North Carolina State break through into that top 16 perhaps and make it to that round of 16, but that's about it. Michigan State maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But sad to hear about North Carolina State as well. Kaylin Waymar, she's no longer with the team. That was their big transfer. She was a player who I thought could turn it around for them and make them a true contender, but she's been having a lot of complications with that hip since the surgery, and so she's no longer on the roster for this season. That's going to be hard on them. I don't think that they're going to bounce back from that. They have been bringing Tilda Trigger along, but it's just not the same. She was the Patriot League Defensive Player of the Year, and she was an 18 and 10 getter, so she's not just getting blocks. Caitlin Waymar, hope you get well soon. I wonder if she's going to go back with North Carolina State or go to a different team next year. We'll see. We'll stay tuned to that. But let's get to some of these games from yesterday.